want to talk about briefly is the CARES Act's Paycheck Protection Program. So this goes into the second item of congressional relief from Congress that came at the end of March 2020. I know all of you employers recall this law, or excuse me, recall this program very well because it helps so many employers across the country who were struggling during the pandemic. It applied to employers with less than 500 employees, and it was aimed to help employers keep their employees employed during the pandemic when employers largely were unable to operate their businesses because of items related to the pandemic. Now, this program got extended and extended and extended over time. It initially was only going to be available for a couple of months, but it was a highly popular program that is with a special utility as a pandemic continued to linger. And again, this program applies to businesses with less than 500 employees. The program was available, or was at least supposed to be available, until the end of May of this year, but the funds depleted. They ran out on May 4th. About $821 billion of funding was provided through the Paycheck Protection Program. The Paycheck Protection Program, PPP, allowed employers to take loans that do not need to be paid back as long as those employers use those loans on rent and utility expenses and also payroll. Payroll, by the way, under Paycheck Protection Program does include health benefits. And they could do that for 18 to 24 weeks. Employers were able to get 2.5 times their monthly payroll because they were supposed to initially use this across an 8-week period. That's 2 months. And they can also have some money to pay for their rent and utilities. So they could take 2.5 times their monthly payroll, and they could opt to give that funds to their employees across an 8-week period or a 24-week period. And this program was so popular and so needed by so many employers that many employers were able to take 2 loans out for 4 different months across the year if they needed them. But it was more difficult to qualify for the second Paycheck Protection Program loan. You certainly did not want to be one of those employers in this category, though many were. If you needed the second loan for the Paycheck Protection Program, which many people did, there were more stringent qualifications to qualify. And I want to show you how highly utilized the Paycheck Protection Program is. Like I told you, there were additional items from Congress that I did not include in the initial slide, some small micro ones. The second item on this chart is an example of one of those small micro items that came from Washington, D.C. at the end of April. The Paycheck Protection Program was initially made available on April 3rd, 2020. The program was supposed to be available for 2 months initially, but the funds dried up in less than 2 weeks. Because of that, the program was popular. Federal government needed to enhance and increase funding, which they did just 21 days later after the program launched. But this chart illustrates to you how much funding was largely made available through the Paycheck Protection Program. The final amount of funding was released into the program on March 11th with the American Rescue Plan Act, which totaled $821 billion. And again, it was supposed to be available through the end of May, but on the 4th of May and announced on the 5th of May, the program ran out of funds because they were all utilized, and the program has not been funded further from that.